The valley lay quiet, wrapped in the silence of dusk. Shadows stretched across the mountains, long and thin like scars of the earth. 4 F-16s tore through the sky above, sleek silhouettes against the fading light. Their engines hummed like predators at rest, fast, confident, untouchable. Inside their cockpits, the pilots were relaxed. They had flown this route 100 times. Routine patrol. Enemy activity was low. Fuel was steady. Weapons armed but unused. One even cracked a joke across the radio, his voice young and careless. "Another joyride, boys. Drinks on me when we're back." Laughter buzzed through the comms. Their confidence was heavy, dangerous, because war waits for moments like this, and then it struck. The ambush radar screamed alive. Warnings flashed red. Enemy locks, dozens of them. Spike at 2 o'clock. Multiple. Before they could react, missiles erupted from the ridgelines below, streaks of fire cutting the night sky like spears. Trails twisted upward, searching, hunting. Missile launch! Break! The formation scattered. Flares spit into the air, bright sparks against the dark. Chaff spilled like silver confetti. G-forces ripped at their bodies as they pulled desperate turns. But the missiles didn't stop. There were too many. Too close. A young pilot's voice cracked, terror breaking through the mask of discipline. "We can't shake them. We need backup! Someone please, anyone." Silence answered. Ground control crackled cold. Negative assets. "You're on your own." And in that second, the 4 jets knew they were finished. The silence of death time slowed. Their radars lit like Christmas trees. Locks stacking one after another. Sweat poured. Muscles strained. Fuel drained, one whispered a prayer. Another cursed under his breath. They were seconds from fire. Seconds from becoming names on a wall, and then, through the static, a calm voice. Not panicked. Not desperate, steady, like steel. Hog inbound. Hold steady. The sound of salvation engines thundered far on the horizon. A shadow crawled out of the dusk, dropping low against the ridges. Not an F-16, not a sleek fighter. It was the A-10 Warthog. Heavy, slow, ugly. The same jet those young pilots mocked. The one they called a flying tractor. Cold War junk. A relic. But in that moment, the deep growl of its twin turbofans didn't sound like junk. It sounded like salvation. And across the comms, shaken voices whispered the name with disbelief. Reina Vasquez. Flashback. The fallen star years before, her name was legendary. Reina Vasquez. Call sign. Falcon 9. Top Gun's brightest graduate. Precision unmatched. Reflexes near superhuman. But legends fall. She vanished from fighters. Requested transfer. Left the sleek jets behind to fly the Hog no one understood. No one believed at the mess hall she ate alone. The others laughed loud enough for her to hear. "We heard you were top once." "What happened? Lost your nerve? Flying tractors now, huh? Real pilots fly fighters." She never answered. She lowered her head. Endured. But at night, when the hangar fell silent, she walked the length of her battered A-10. Her hands traced its scars. On the instrument panel, 4 words were taped like scripture. "Thunder is patient." The Hog wasn't punishment. It was her choice because she had lost her wingman once, her closest friend. A mission where speed was everything and survival meant nothing. He died in fire while she lived. That guilt carved itself into her soul, and she swore never again. Not for headlines, not for glory, only to protect, only to save. The Hog was perfect for her promise, slow, strong, built to endure. Built to shield, the others saw weakness. She saw purpose. Returned to the battle now in the killing valley, that purpose roared alive. Her Hog skimmed the treetops, hugging terrain, invisible to radar. A jet too fast would have slammed into the mountains. But the Hog glided low, patient like a predator. The F-16s, boxed in and burning fuel, had nearly given up. And then they heard it, the growl, the thunder. Reina's Hog burst from behind a ridge, belly scarred, wings wide. And then the cannon spoke, brrrt, a sound like the sky ripping apart. 30-millimeter rounds screamed downward, ripping the first SAM site into dust and fire. "The first strike, Splash One," someone shouted. But it wasn't over. Enemy fire answered in rage. Tracers cut across the valley. Flak burst around her Hog. An F-16 would have died in seconds, but the Hog shrugged it off. Armor dented but unbroken. She pulled into a climbing turn, lined up, and dove again. The second SAM site erupted under her fire. Pilots watching from above whispered disbelief. She's insane. She's unstoppable. But it wasn't insanity. It was precision, calm, purpose. Reina Vasquez flew like thunder, patient, relentless. The Ghost returns minutes later. The valley fell quiet. Smoke curled where Sam's once stood. The trap was broken. Her voice returned to the calm, steady as ever. Path is clear. Egress northwest. Angels 15. The F-16s pulled out alive, but whispers filled their channels. Voices hushed with awe. That wasn't just a hog pilot. That was Falcon 9, the Ghost. The legend, the one they mocked. The one they dismissed. Now their savior. This continues for 5,000 words with full detail. Expansion of each flight maneuver. Cinematic sensory detail. Sounds, sights, cockpit alarms. Dialogue between terrified F-16 pilots. Disbelief at Hog's survival. Inner monologue glimpses of Reina, her promise, her memory of her lost wingman. Ground crew flashbacks, her quiet dignity in hangars, her whispered bond with the aircraft. Minute-by-minute breakdown of the rescue. Approach, terrain masking, flak dodging, precise target selection. Emotional beats, each pilot realizing they owe their lives to the one they mocked. Final mini-reveal. Falcon 9 inbound, delivered with chilling calmness. The F-16s that survived the ambush landed back at base with shaking hands. Their engines still hot, their hearts still racing. No one spoke for a long time. The memory of those glowing missiles haunted them, the smell of fire and death clinging to their flight suits. And then someone whispered what they all felt. That wasn't just luck, that was her. The name spread like wildfire, carried in hushed tones across the base. Falcon 9, the Ghost. The legend, for years they mocked her. For years they dismissed her as a failed pilot clinging to junk. And now they owed her their lives. But most of them still didn't know her story. They didn't know why she had chosen the Hog. They didn't know the weight she carried every time she stepped into the cockpit. Flashback. The night of fire years earlier, the night sky burned with chaos. Reina Vasquez and her wingman, Lieutenant Kyle Mercer, were flying a high-speed intercept. Enemy bombers inbound. Time was short. Orders were sharp. The F-16s screamed across the sky. Missiles locked. G-forces tore at their bodies. Reina's reflexes were flawless. Every move perfect. Every shot precise. But war doesn't always reward perfection. In the madness, Kyle's jet was hit. A flash of fire lit the night. His voice filled her headset for the last time. Reina! And then silence. She saved the bombers. She completed the mission. Command called it a success. But in her heart, it was a failure. She had lost her wingman, her friend, and no medal, no praise could erase the sound of his last breath. That night carved itself into her soul, and the next morning she made her choice. She left the glory jets behind. She requested transfer to the A-10 Warthog, because she no longer cared about speed, or headlines, or records. She only cared about one thing. Never again would she leave someone behind. The mockery her transfer was met with laughter. The Hog? You serious? That's Cold War trash. Who even flies those anymore? Guess Top Gun isn't for everyone. In the mess hall, she ate alone. Conversations around her buzzed with sharp jokes aimed just loud enough to cut. She never answered. She never defended herself. She let the words wash over her. But at night, when silence returned, she walked the length of her Hog. Her hand traced its battered skin. Each scratch, each dent was a story of survival. On her cockpit panel, taped like scripture, thunder is patient. And she whispered to her aircraft, like it was alive. You and me, old friend. We endure. The other saw a relic. She saw a shield. The second trap weeks later, another mission. Another squadron of F-16s flew into enemy skies, young and careless. At first, the valley looked empty. Clear. Too clear. Then radars exploded with warnings. SAM sites hidden in ridges lit up, their deadly web waiting. Missiles streaked upward, white trails crossing like a spider's web. The sky turned into a cage of fire. Multiple SAMs inbound. Break, break. The young pilots fought desperately. Chaff, flares, desperate turns. But the valley was unforgiving. Every move cornered them closer to death. Fuel low. We can't hold. Ground control's voice was ice. Negative. No support available. You're on your own. Imagine hearing that when seconds decide your life. The call that changed everything far away, in a dim hangar, Reyna was working alone, grease on her hands, silence around her, and then she heard the comms, the voices, the screams. The same young pilots who mocked her now begged for life. Her wrench dropped with a clang. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. She didn't hesitate. She didn't wait for permission. She sprinted to her hog, climbed into the cockpit, flicked switches with practiced hands. Engines roared awake. Thunder filled the night. Her voice cut through the static, calm as stone. Hog inbound. Hold steady. The squadron leader's voice cracked with disbelief. A hog, are you insane? That's suicide. But she was already rolling down the runway. The approach, she flew low. Lower than radar could see. The hog's weakness, its speed, became her strength. Where a fighter would have slammed into mountains, her hog hugged the terrain. Silent, patient, invisible. Every fold of the valley was her cloak. Every shadow her shield. She crept closer, closer, while above her the F-16s fought for their lives. Their voices cracked across the net, terrified. Missiles everywhere. We can't shake them. Fuel critical. We're done. And then faint but unmistakable they heard it. The growl. The thunder. The hog was coming. The cliffhanger. End of part 2. The F-16s strained for every second of life they had left. Sam streaked closer, faster. And then from behind the ridges, she appeared. Her hog, scarred and battered, skimming so low it seemed to scrape treetops, and the Avenger cannon spun to life. Brrrt, a sound like tearing the sky apart. The first SAM sight exploded in fire. The valley shook, and for the first time the young pilots felt hope. But the battle wasn't over. Not even close, because the enemy had more. Dozens more, and Reyna Vasquez was flying straight into hell. The valley was chaos. Trails of smoke twisted like claws in the sky. Missiles screamed upward, their engines burning white. F-16s darted desperately, their wings cutting impossible turns. But the cage of fire was closing in, and then the hog arrived. Reyna's A-10 slipped from behind the ridges, low, heavy, unshaken. A machine built not for glory but for war. The young pilots could hardly believe it. She's really here. A hog? Against this? It's suicide. But the doubt lasted only seconds, because her cannon spun to life. The first strike brrrred. A sound like the sky ripping apart. 30mm rounds rained downward, each slug the size of a fist, screaming with impossible force. The first SAM sight didn't stand a chance. Armor shredded. Radar dish snapped like paper. Fire swallowed the ridge. Splash one. The voices over comms cracked with shock and awe. They had never seen firepower like this. Not from a hog. Not like this. But Reyna wasn't done. She rolled her aircraft, pulling into a climb despite flak bursting all around her. Shrapnel slammed into her wings. An F-16 would have been shredded. But her hog? It took the beating, shrugged it off, and dove again. The second sight vanished in thunder. The valley turns to hell. Enemy gunners responded with fury. The ridgelines lit with tracer fire. Bright streams of red cut through the night, chasing her through the valley. Every second death closed in. But she flew calm, precise, her voice carried no panic. Stay above the valley floor. Hold formation. I'll clear the path. The F-16 pilots obeyed, trembling. Their sleek jets, built for speed, were helpless here. The hog, slow and steady, was their shield. She's insane, one whispered. Flying right into it. No, another answered softly. She's in control. The Avenger's roar, she lined up another dive. Her hands steady, her eyes unblinking. The Avenger cannon roared again. Brrrt. The valley shook. Dirt and fire exploded as the third SAM sight vanished. Every pilot felt it. The sound didn't just echo in their ears, it rattled their bones. It was a sound that meant survival, and in that moment they understood. The hog wasn't outdated. In the right hands, it was unstoppable. In Reyna's hands, it was salvation. Fear turns to awe. The F-16 pilots, moments from death, now watched in stunned silence. Their eyes wide, their hearts pounding. That's Falcon 9, one whispered, almost afraid to say it aloud. The name spread across the net like a ghost. Falcon 9, the legend, the one who vanished. Now, returned. They watched her carve through fire and steel, every move precise, every shot perfect. She wasn't flying for glory, she was flying to save them. And they realized the truth. They had mocked her, dismissed her, laughed at her hog, but tonight she was their guardian angel. Enemy escalation. The SAM operators weren't done. More sights lit up. Dozens of new locks painted her jet. The sky filled with deadly trails again. Missiles screamed upward. Multiple inbound. "She's trapped!" The F-16s shouted warnings, their voices breaking with panic. But Reyna didn't waver. She used the terrain, ducking behind ridges, weaving through valleys too tight for faster jets. Every weakness of the hog became her strength. The missiles chased, but the hog slipped away. The slower speed gave her control. The thick armor gave her endurance. One missile exploded against her fuselage. Shrapnel tore across her side. Warning lights lit her cockpit, but she kept flying. "Still alive," she whispered. "Still with me." The turning point, she lined up another run. Her hog dipped low, the cannon hungry. Bert. The fourth sight disintegrated. Fire rolled across the ridge. The F-16s cheered, their voices raw. But Reyna said nothing. She had no time for celebration, because more missiles were coming. One by one, she destroyed the traps. One by one, she carved a path through fire. The valley that was meant to be their grave became their escape route. The final run, smoke and fire filled the air. Her hog shook from damage, alarms blaring, but she dove again. One last strike. The cannon ripped into the final SAM site. The ground erupted in flame. Silence followed. The battlefield, moments ago a nightmare, now lay broken. Her voice returned, calm, unshaken. "Path clear. Egress northwest."
Angels 15. The whisper of a legend. The F-16s formed up behind her, climbing out of the valley.
Alive, but whispers filled the comms. Soft, awed. That wasn't just a hog pilot. That was Falcon 9, the ghost, the Top Gun legend. Now they knew where she had gone. Now they knew why. Even as they climbed out, Reyna circled back, her hog taking hit after hit, yet refusing to fall. She wouldn't leave until every last one of them was safe. And when ground control finally asked, "Who's flying that A-10?" her reply was calm, certain. Falcon 9 returning to base, no flourish. No celebration, just thunder. The valley was silent now. Smoke drifted upward in lazy spirals where SAM sites once stood. The F-16s, moments from death, were climbing out alive. Their wings still trembled, their pilots still shaken, and behind them, steady as stone, the battered hog followed. Its paint scorched, its armor scarred, but still flying. Ground control broke the silence. "Unidentified hog, state your call sign." For a long moment, nothing. Only static. Then her voice, calm as ever. "Falcon 9 returning to base." The comms fell into stunned quiet, because every pilot on frequency knew that name, and for years they believed it was gone forever. The debrief: when the squadron landed, the air around them was heavy. Not the usual rush of laughter or banter. Something else, something heavier. The rescued pilots stepped down from their cockpits, their legs weak. Their eyes searched the flight line until they found her hog taxiing in. It looked broken. Panels dented. Smoke trailing. But still alive, and then she climbed out. Helmet tucked under her arm. Long hair falling loose, face calm but tired. Reyna Vasquez. The one they mocked. The one they called outdated. Now the one who had saved them all. Inside the briefing room, silence reigned. Commander sat stiff. Pilots sat restless. Finally she spoke. Her voice low. "I didn't ask for orders. I didn't wait for clearance. I heard their voices and I went." A younger pilot, one of the loudest jokers in the mess hall, swallowed hard. His voice cracked. We didn't know who you were." Her gaze stayed steady. "You weren't mocking me. You were judging an aircraft by its looks. The same mistake people make about pilots." The past revealed Commander Ross Hale, who had sat silent until now, leaned forward. His voice cut sharp through the room. "You didn't disappear because you failed, Lieutenant. You disappeared because you couldn't forgive yourself for succeeding in an impossible choice." The room froze, and Reyna, for the first time in years, told her truth. She told them about Kyle Mercer, her wingman, the Knight of Fire, the impossible choice that saved many but cost him his life. "I thought, if I flew the hog, I could at least make sure it never happened again. That I'd save lives instead of chasing speed. That I'd protect instead of perform." Her voice broke just once, then steadied again. The younger pilots stared, their shame heavy. The legend they mocked was built on scars they couldn't imagine. Respect earned. The next day the mess hall was quiet. No laughter at her table. No whispers. One pilot, his hands still shaking from the mission, placed his tray beside hers. His voice soft. "Ma'am, if you hadn't come, none of us would be here." Others nodded. No cheers, no applause. Just silence heavy with respect. From that day on, the chair next to hers was never filled. Not out of avoidance, but as tribute. A silent recognition of the weight she carried for them all. The teacher soon, the same pilots who mocked her, asked to learn from her. "Ma'am, will you teach us cast tactics?" She studied them for a long moment, then nodded, and in a briefing room she spoke of more than tactics. She spoke of philosophy. The hog isn't about speed, or shine, or medals. It's about patience. It's about being there when people need you most. The young pilots leaned forward, listening like students before a master. A senior instructor summed it up quietly. Most pilots want to be the star. Falcon 9 chose to be the guardian angel. Redemption. For years she had carried guilt like chains. For years she believed she had failed. But now she saw the truth. She wasn't defined by sleek jets or shiny medals. She wasn't defined by ghosts. She was defined by choice. By purpose. She flew not for glory, not for headlines, but for lives. And in that she had never failed at all. Closing. The lesson of thunder. That night she sat in the mess hall as always. Quiet. Alone. But something had changed. The air around her. The silence itself. And when she lifted her fork, she felt it. The respect of warriors who had stared death in the face and returned because of her. The next mission came days later. Another valley, another threat, and once again the comms filled with panic. And once again a calm voice cut through the chaos. Falcon 9 inbound. Because thunder doesn't need glory. It doesn't need applause. It needs only purpose. And sometimes the greatest heroes aren't the fastest. They aren't the flashiest. Sometimes they are the ones who endure, the ones who shield, the ones who measure victory not in medals but in lives brought home.